Live behind decisions I chose. Peaks feel good and the valleys get low. Chains for the tires in the rain, hail, snow. It's like this everywhere that I go, everywhere that I go.
Hey everybody, it's Hussein Kabani, your favorite broker, and I've got Ima here. Her mom refers to her as Chotu, so for the rest of this video, we'll be calling her Chotu. Maybe not. So guys, we're putting this video together here because you guys may not know this, but we actually do a lot of leasing. Yeah. It's not very lucrative. I'll throw it out there right now. We're going to be selective about who we work with when it comes to leasing, but we do a lot of it. I think last year we did like more than 20, maybe 25 leases just last year. Over time, we've kind of figured out a process that works for us about how to qualify these people when they come in. For me, I get a little bit annoyed, I'm going to be honest. Most of the times we get a lot of PDF documents. We ask for everything to be set up in a nice little clean package. You know how many times we get that?
I want to say I would say
0. So we'll move on.
I was trying to be nice.
Yeah, almost never. Everything is very scattered when we get it. And honestly, I don't have the patience to put it together. So what ends up happening is that Ima basically goes through and puts together everything in a neat, organized way. And then so we could actually review it properly. By the way, if an agent is watching this would actually help you out a lot if you just presented a very clean package with the rental application up front and we didn't have to chase you for stuff. We'd be more receptive to working with you, by the way. But anyway, so I'm going to let Ima tell you guys about what the documents we require from a tenant when we start screening them for a property.
For sure. And I think not even just for us to limit our work in terms of putting all the attachments together. I think it just really helps landlords process the information as well. At the end of the day, they're trusting their home to a stranger and they're getting a bunch of documents to review to decide who's going to take care of their home and who isn't. So nevertheless, even if we get single attachments, we end up putting it together because at the end of the day, I want to make sure that we have all the information that we need to feel comfortable with leasing the home out to whichever family we're considering. Yeah. I think one thing is standard that I think every single agent should be asking for, which is the rental application. Yeah. And for those of you who have never seen one, it's basically a very concise 2-page document that basically summarizes your entire profile. So if I'm not wrong, it has basic information like what your name is, who are the applicants that are going to be living in the house, where they currently live, why they're even leaving the place that they're currently living at, if they have any pets, if they don't have pets, where they work, how much they make, and just basic information like that. References. And references, and if they have any cars, because it kind of helps us understand if there's, liabilities and loans and things like that. But I particularly really like this document, mainly because I think it's like a chance for the applicants to really summarize who they are as a person. And I love it sometimes because they'll think, oh yeah, I make $5,000 a month, and they'll write that in that little line. And then when you look at their employment letter, it's actually $3,000 a month. So it's really interesting because I think it kind of puts into perspective what people are thinking when they're filling out their own rental application as well. So that's one document. Yeah. Were you about to say something about the document?
I want to get on with the document.
Anyway, so rental application. Then the next thing is your ID. Then we've got your employment letter. We ask for 3 to 4 pay stubs, mainly because you can just see the consistency that you're getting paid the same amount or whatever the amount is every 2 weeks. So we can just kind of see the stability behind it. And the last thing is your credit score, along with your full credit report.
Full credit report, guys. Not just a snapshot of the front page or whatever. We want the full report, all the details behind it.
Yeah, sometimes it just says, hey, revolving accounts like 4 or 5, but you don't see the details. So we usually ask to see every single account that's been opened and closed just so we can see the frequency and payments and things like that.
Yep. So that's a list of documents basically that we're going to be asking for. And once we do receive these documents and Ima, Chotu, has basically put them all together in one PDF, we will basically send it to the landlord and give them our opinion at a high level and basically say, hey, here's an application we received. Here's a neat little package about these people. This is what we think so far. What do you think? And then we'll basically collect their thoughts on, what they're thinking. And if they're like, yeah, okay, it looks good, let's move this ball forward, then Ima here basically will start to call references. Do a bigger, deeper dive. So now I'm looking at, okay, whoever wrote their employment letter, find them on LinkedIn to make sure that they actually exist. Or if they
currently own their property, they're selling it, and now they're moving on to renting one, I actually look up that property to see when it was sold, what it was sold for, the fact that they did actually own it, and things like that. I think this is, like Hussein said, once a landlord has approved what they kind of see at a high level, that's when you can actually feel like, hey, it's worth your time doing a little bit, a little bit more due diligence, go on their social media profiles, find out, sometimes we find out that they write that they don't have pets, and then you go onto their Facebook profiles and there's cats and dogs everywhere. So not that it's a problem, but it's just sometimes you get a glimpse of what, what the tenant is like if they're lying already about pets, what
else going on?
What else is going on? So in a nutshell, all we're really trying to say is we do a very, very deep dive, as much information as we can possibly collect, just so that we can be a little bit more proactive instead of reacting when things go wrong later.
Yeah. So there we have it. So we have all the list of documents. Then once the landlord is like, hey, at a high level, we're good with this, then we start doing the due diligence, making sure where they work, checking their employment. IMA actually goes through and looks at their gross pay, calculates it down to net pay. We use online calculators to make sure it makes sense. Also, what she failed to mention is that we actually look at it almost as a mortgage approval. So we're basically going to look at your ratios. How much money do you make? How much is rent? And we're going to forward extend to see how much your expenses are. And can you actually afford to live once you actually rent this place? Just gives us an understanding of your financials and how you're going to be able to float it, if you're going to be able to float it. So once we get to that point,
our last step is a little interview. We did this via Zoom during COVID times, but now things are almost back to normal. So we prefer to meet in person. We'll tell you guys a little bit of a story afterwards as well. But basically, like I said, everything that we've kind of seen and collected is on paper or on a computer screen. I think meeting with your potential tenants it may sound like a drag to some people, but I cannot stress how important it is to actually meet somebody. Sometimes it's just the energy. Sometimes it's just the vibe that, hey, however good they look on paper, are they really that good in person as well? And believe me, you can find out. You don't need to have a long, lengthy interview process, but meeting with somebody for 5, 10, 15 minutes can actually tell you a lot. Sure. And it's like I said, it's not meant to be an interview. It's just supposed to be a meet and greet, and you're asking them the same questions that you already basically have answers to, but it's just about how they're responding and their energy, like I said.
100%. Because at the end of the day, for us and why we're so we don't want to take on too many rental clients and stuff like that. I'm upfront with you guys. It's not a very lucrative thing to do. And there is so many rights for tenants here, right? So the thing is that we buy our insurance with placing tenants right up front. And at the end of the day, it's our reputation. And there's a lot of people that say, it takes 50 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to destroy it. And we're not going to put, to the best of our ability, we're not going to put somebody without, for lack of a better way of putting them through the ringer and making sure that this person is going to be good for our landlord before we agree to put them in there. Because at the end of the day, what's going to happen? We're going to look really bad if this tenant doesn't perform to their responsibility, their expectation. And the other thing is that we're not going to jump ship either, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to jump ship and say, hey, well, you got a dud here. We'll have a good day about that. But we're going to go in there and we're going to try to figure this situation out. Now story time.
I was gonna say
we've been out. I've been out there, and I didn't place this tenant. Okay, I didn't place this tenant, but I've been actually out there on a property, and basically, these guys say they're gonna move out. They don't move out. They damage the property. I didn't place them. I want to be very clear. I didn't place these people there. But I know everybody on the street, and and what we found out is that they're very sensitive about how other people view them. So what I did was we basically ordered pizza. We hung out at the front lawn over there because they said they're going to move out. And we basically just talked to every single person on the street because I used to live there. And I told everybody what the problem was and what was going on. You know how quickly they started moving out of that house? Look, it doesn't always work out that way. But my point is that for me, I take it personally. We're going to go to another level, personal level, to make sure that we're going to be able to help these people out.
Exactly. Like I said, then you don't have to be reactive later on, and you've done everything right up front.
So the other thing I want to tell you, do you have that review handy over there?
Yeah, this actually just happened last
year, I think. Yeah. So basically, rental market was still pretty crazy last year, and we got multiple offers on a rental property. So we ended up meeting with somebody that contacted us directly. We showed them the house or whatever else like that. Well, one thing I'm going to point out, which I really hated, this guy obviously takes off his shoes before coming into the property. The basement is unfinished. The guy walks downstairs without putting on his shoes. When I told him, put on your shoes before you go to the basement, unfinished basement, he walks all over the freaking basement with his socks, comes up, there's dark hardwood, and walks all over the house. And I'm looking at this guy, he's like, dude, like, you just walked all over this house with your footprints on it. Okay, I just chalked it up to being like a dumb mistake the guy made or whatever.
But again, like these are little things that really kind of, put you kind of can tell about how a person is going to be by their actions, right?
Yeah. So we basically actually did go through the process of vetting them out, and everything looked great on paper and whatnot. And I think we were almost deciding to move forward with these people.
Yes. So
but it didn't work out.
It didn't work out. So again, the interview process, meeting and greeting really, really, really is important because even though
sorry, 1 second. If we don't miss it, because I just remembered it right now. I think the husband and wife, they were on different pages about like move-in dates, how their rental deposit was going to be paid, when it was going to be paid. They wanted to give us like some of the deposit now and maybe some of it later on possibly this date. It was just a
very confusing situation.
And we actually spent time with this lady, and she's like, my husband's working, whatever. But we spent time on the phone with this lady and went through every page, every document, every clause. And she's like, no, I'm going to explain it to my husband. Everything is fine. I think 45 minutes we spent on the phone going through everything. And she's like, everything is good.
And I think basically what kind of broke that relationship off was first and last month rent is just standard. Anytime you go out to do a lease, you're going to be required to give the first and last month deposit. And we found out that they wanted to leave us just $1,000 deposit in good faith when the rent was like $3,000 a month. So they should have been leaving us a $6,000 deposit, but they only wanted to leave $1,000. And it's a little bit weird. You're about to, give your home away to somebody and they only have $1,000 right now to put as a deposit. Again, like these are the little red flags, we like to call them, that come up in conversation, and it kind of gives you the feeling whether you should move forward or you shouldn't. But we find it hilarious because obviously this person was very upset about how we made the process very critical and that we were asking for too much information, that he left us this review. So I'm going to read it very, very quickly, but 1 star, obviously. Renters, be aware, I had the unfortunate experience of working with Mr. Kabani and his team in 2022. After an unnecessary interview process which took 2 days, we were selected as a candidate to rent a property in Whitby. We were told of this Friday afternoon. Saturday morning, when reaching out to discuss payment with Mr. Kabani, I was informed suddenly that the offer we had already signed and agreed to had been rescinded. There was no offer signed. Something fishy going on here. Renters, be aware. So I just found that very hilarious because this person was obviously just very upset about how critical we were being. But I feel like that the 2 days which he found to be a nuisance actually helped our landlords out quite a bit.
Yeah, like, I mean, so like, this is a video. If you're a tenant and wondering why we're going to be doing all of this stuff and you're asking me, this is a video you're pretty much going to receive. So you can understand, like, this is the process of what we go through. This is why we go through it. And we run into these things sometimes where we're able to catch them right off the top, okay? Not all the time that we're going to be able to catch them. And you know what, despite like, I think us placing really, really good tenants, we do run into hiccups. I don't think we've run into anything like hugely major. Yeah. But there are some instances where we've run into, and like say one that's kind of going on right now, which is basically, the lease says that if you're going to give 60 days notice that you're going to be moving out of the property, then we basically have 60 days to start marketing the property for sale or for lease again. So we give you 24 hours notice, and we're not going to be just pricks and just say 24 hours is 24 hours. We're going to work with you and say, hey, like, when can we get somebody in, blah, blah, blah. But we have a guy right now that's just pushing back. I get he's overwhelmed and whatever. And my landlord, such a nice guy. He's a little bit of a pushover, I'd say it. He could be real mean. He's been mean with me before too, so I know that.
If you're watching this, you're too nice.
Yeah, too nice. So basically, now we've got involved with the situation, and I basically just kind of told him nicely, like, hey man, like, we've given you so much leeway over here. Like, don't let the landlord be stranded because you want to leave. Your term is ending on the 15th and you want us to just deal with it on the 15th. It's not cool, right? Like, we've been nice to you. Let's have some showings. We could get this rented out so our landlord doesn't have a huge gap. Like, he's got obligations at the same time. And we're willing to work with you. We're not trying to be pricks here either, but we've given you a lot of time. Allow us some time to at least do these showings. Yeah. He's like, basically, you're quoting me the landlord-tenant board rules? Well, guess what? You can give me all the notice you want. I'm not letting you in the house.
And again, this ties into a video that got a lot of attention last year about landlord tenant board just protecting the tenants quite a bit. And,
Yeah.
and like I said, everyone looks the best on paper. Everyone is on their best behavior when you're trying to lease your home out to them. But again, some things happen later on, and they're minor things at the end of the day. But these are things that you can't really predict until it happens.
And you don't know the extent, right? Just to quickly rhyme out a couple of situations, and this is why we do what we do, is because look, there was a client of mine that basically wanted to sell their property. I encouraged them not to sell the property because they were going back home. They thought they were going to end up living there. And I said, hey, at some point, are you and your kids going to return to Canada? You're never going to be able to buy back in this market. I said, I think you should rent it out. They were nervous about it. I said, no, listen, there's nothing to be nervous about. We can manage it, blah, blah, blah. We can take care of it for you guys. And I run across a realtor that is a colleague. He goes, he's a nice guy, and he's a good realtor. And he's like, listen, having trouble placing him because of the background and whatever else like that, but all of his paper, everything's clean and whatever. And I said, okay, I know the realtor. This guy should be good, whatever. He's having a new house built. He can show me all the paperwork, everything. I said, fine, this should be fine. Well, guess what? My clients need to move back to the country. They need back in the house. We give them 90 days notice or something like that. But guess what? His house got delayed. So he's basically like, you can do whatever you want to do, but I'm not moving out of this house. I'm not damaging it. I'm paying the rent on time, but I'm not moving out. We try to find other solutions. Like I said, I'm not going to abandon anyone. We had another house that was going to come up for lease. We went and showed it to him and said, hey, we'll give you a short term on this. He's like, well, my bed is not going to fit in this house. It's like, dude, come on. So we run into these situations. It makes us more concerned about who we're going to end up placing.
And the same thing goes for when we're on the other side. So we rhymed out the process of how we, review applications when we're representing the landlord. But even if we decide that, hey, we want to help a tenant out and place them inside of a home, I would go through the exact same process and do the due diligence on the tenant up front, because what happens is now I'm going to submit their application to potential homes, and they're also going to be thinking the same way that we are. So we try our best that even if we're going to take on a tenant to show them homes, that we're doing, I would say, a good service to not only the tenant, but the landlord, to ourselves. And we only take on people that would meet this criteria that we kind of just rhymed out. So
at the end of the day, it's like a representation of our brand, our business at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, if there is somebody that's looking for a rental, we're not going to tell you no. But what we're going to ask you for is a lot of documentation, a lot of information up front, because we want to make sure that we're able to represent you in the best possible way. And at the same time, not create a situation where we look bad, if something goes wrong here. So we're going to be very careful. Any thoughts on this due diligence process?
I don't know. People are going to think we're nuts after this, or they're going to appreciate what we do. But
well, here's the thing. We're talking about people thinking we're nuts, but we're in the preliminary process of saying, hey, how can we make our process even tighter? You guys might already be looking at this video and saying, wow, this is pretty aggressive. I could probably get a mortgage easier than dealing with these guys, and you probably can. But I think there's two more things that I'm going to start to look into. So there is something that's floating out there, and it's been around for a while. One of our landlords does this, and
already uses
good on
this.
him.
Yeah.
Good on him. There is a way that you could get a tenant to potentially sign something that says that, hey, we're going to report to our credit bureau, good and bad. Okay, so it doesn't have to be a negative thing. Maybe you're a little short on your credit score being good, okay? And you could basically sign this form, and we're strongly considering to pitch to our landlords that says, hey, if this client doesn't sign this form, I think that's a red flag. And basically what this landlord can do is every time you pay your rent on time, they go online, they say, yes, this tenant is awesome. They paid their rent. They paid on time. They paid on time. If you don't pay on time, and that could help you actually raise your credit score.
Yep.
And if you don't pay on time, they're going to go in and say, didn't pay on time, didn't pay on time, didn't pay on time, cause your credit score to go down. So that's one thing that we're thinking about strongly implementing.
And single key is the
and
next
single
thing.
key, I don't want to just advertise for this company because I'm not really
we haven't used
it
enough to promote it, I'd say, but this is something that we're thinking of.
Yeah, single key is something else we have started to use a little bit. I'm not endorsing the company, but it is pretty interesting, and we're going to look into it a little bit further, maybe have some chat with people over there. When we get a credit report, for the most part right now from people, they're sending us a PDF document. How many of you guys out there have a PDF software that can basically manipulate anything on a PDF document? I don't really trust it anymore. You know what I mean? So what we're starting to do is starting to think about the idea of, and we've had some people do it already, where we've kind of not had an easy feeling about it. It's a $25 report, I think. Yeah. They basically go onto single key. We could send them a link to it, actually, and they can click on it. and they can fill out all their information. It's going to run a credit report on them. Not only a credit report, but I think it does a quick little social
Criminal
media
check,
screening on them, a criminal check, things like that. And it basically, what it does is that, why I like it in terms of representing the landlord, it actually system generates a report and sends it directly to me.
Yeah.
Directly into my inbox. So nobody has touched this thing. It's coming directly from the credit bureau, from their system directly to me, and I can see what the raw deal is with these people.
Yeah.
So as critical as we may seem, I think we're going to set up a process where we're going to try to take this a little bit further at the same time.
And I think it's a continuous improvement process. So I think we're doing better and better. But if you guys have any ideas, especially landlords out there, about what they're looking for, how they feel, we got some great stories last year after that one video you did. So if you guys think of any ideas, things we could add, implement, or, I would love to hear.
Or even your stories.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? We know a lot of people out there are scared to buy rental properties because number one thing I hear is like, I don't know, I hear a lot of horror stories. And guess what? You know what, guys? You guys know that bad news spreads a lot faster than good news. Last year we did, I think, 25-ish leases or something around that, maybe 22. But honestly, so far, fingers crossed, knock on wood, we haven't actually had any issues with any of our guys. Everyone's paying. All the tenants that we placed previously, everyone paid. Do we have a little bit of here and there with a very small percentage of our clients? Yeah, absolutely. But for the most part, we don't have horror stories to tell you, hey, stop investing in buying a rental property.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think we've had...
Yeah. But we'd love to hear your stories because we know they're out there. So if you are even a tenant that has a horrible landlord, let's hear about it. If you're a tenant, or a landlord that has had horrible experience with a tenant, let's hear about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the more information we get out there, the better it is. If you guys have any stories, we'd love to hear about them. If you are a landlord and have good or bad tenants, please share with us. If you're a tenant, have a good or bad landlord, again, we'd love to hear from you guys. Any questions? And I'm going to squeeze this in here if I can. I don't have any hobbies. Ima can vouch for that. We love real estate. And that's why we've set up a calendar that you could get access to me almost anytime. So click the link below here and you can schedule a chat with me. It won't cost you anything. 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I don't mind chatting with you guys. Let's make it happen. Until next time, guys, remember one thing.
Get Kabani.
Get sold.
Sell it, sell it, sell it, sell it, sold. Sell it, sell it, sell it, sell it, sold. Sell it, sell it, sell it, sell it, sold. Sell it, sell it, sell it, sell it, sold.